Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you had a great month of August. We are back in full swing here at Aura News, ready to bring you back our translated version of the top Albanian stories of the day. The Italian Ministry of Labor and Social Policy has recently published a national report on unaccompanied minors over a period that ended on July 31st of 2015. The report says that there are currently 8,442 immigrant minors of different nationalities who are unaccompanied by an adult. This figure is on a growing trend due to the large influx of immigrants arriving daily. The report also indicates a heavy male balance, as 8,014 are male and only 428 are female. The report classifies these immigrant minors by nationality, and Albania is ranked in the second place with 1,198 unaccompanied minors of Albanian origin, a number that makes up 14.2% of the total. The highest number comes from Egypt, with 1,896 immigrant minors. Kosovo is ranked 11th with 220 minors. The report details that back in December, Albania was only in 5th place, indicating significant growth in immigration of minors in the past 7 months. The report also confirms a new trend in the origin of minors from Albania. Until a year ago, the origin was primarily the north of Albania, including Kukës, Dibra, Leja, and Shkodra. Now most of them are coming from the central and southern areas of Albania, such as Fier, Elbasan, and even Tirana. Even though Albania is part of the Schengen area and the Albanians can move freely for up to 3 months in European countries, Albanian families seem to be using their minors to benefit from the better services offered in Italy and other places. As the new political and parliamentary season approaches, Prime Minister Rama has been commenting on some sensitive issues for the country of Albania. Mr. Rama spoke about the reconstruction of the church in Dervishi, the arrest of the police officer for drug trafficking, the conclusions of the Vienna summit on the infrastructure projects, and the country's economic situation. Mr. Rama said that the demolition of the church in Dervishi is being misrepresented and misunderstood. He said that people are speculating that the government arbitrarily destroyed the church, but it will be reconstructed and that it will maintain its place in Albanian history. The Prime Minister declared that there has been extraordinary political progress in the region since the Berlin Conference and leading up to the Vienna summit. It is worth mentioning that we have entered a stage in which progress has increased the attention of the advancement of economic and financial support for the region, said Mr. Rama. The head of the Albanian government announced that the parties involved in this process, organized by Chancellor Merkel, have agreed on investments in the regional infrastructure. He went on, "The map on joint projects in infrastructure has been determined. The Blue Corridor, which links Albania with Montenegro, is of utmost importance, and we also support the project called Peace Road, which connects Serbia, Kosovo, and Albania." Prime Minister Rama responded to the accusations of the opposition about the involvement of a police official in drug trafficking. The police officer who was involved in drug trafficking was arrested, Rama says. "We are not pretending that those who work with us are angels, and if their actions are against the law, they will face the law. The police must be congratulated for condemning those who break the law, even from among their own ranks." Mr. Rama stressed that the government is continuing its reforms in other areas as well, including the justice reform that has received the support of the international community. He announced a new campaign for the collection of taxes. "This will be a frontal war on businesses that do not pay their taxes," he said, "and a war for the protection of the consumers who are being deceived." Commenting briefly on economic developments, the Prime Minister added that the economic growth for Albania will meet the forecast. He said that the government is promoting the kind of fiscal ease that can be found in the free economic countries. The Democratic chairman Lulzim Basha has publicly reacted to the statements of the Prime Minister Rama today. According to Mr. Basha, the Prime Minister did not give any answers about what is happening in the country and did not take responsibility for the situation. He made the following statement: "The only one responsible for what is happening in the country does not take responsibility for his failures in every direction, for the massive corruption, for the theft of $160 million from the customs and tax directories." He calls the involvement of a police chief in drug trafficking a success. He speaks about economic increase, while the poverty and unemployment are increasing every month. The exodus of the citizens is because of the increasing despair, said Mr. Basha. The Democratic chairman blamed the Prime Minister for the economic crisis, the lack of investments, and for appointing criminals to state office. In a final statement, he said that Prime Minister Rama has killed the hope of the Albanians. According to the economic expert Zef Preci, free economic zones in Albania have failed for the past 20 years due to a lack of serious investors. These zones refer to certain locations around the country in which businesses are allowed to operate tax-free, and the government has recently opened 3 such areas to Albanian businessmen, in Spitale, Vlora, and Koplik. Mr. Preci appreciates this initiative as an opportunity to develop the economy of the country, but he also raises the concern of favoritism that the government gives to some businesses. He fears that the free competition might be damaged by the establishment of these free economic zones, increasing corruption and informality. The 3 zones are now available to accommodate businesses. Investors who want to operate in these areas will enjoy exemption from certain taxes, including the VAT, and they will pay 50% less income tax. Automobile owners in Albania can have their vehicle confiscated if they fail to pay their traffic or parking fines. The head of the road police in Tirana, Ervin Dervishi, explains that this penalty is not new, but that the police are paying more attention to enforcing it now. Meanwhile, the payment offices are becoming crowded with people who are anxious to pay their fines, as the government has given warning that vehicles can be confiscated if even a single fine goes unpaid. The head of the road police informs us that the collection of fines is currently at a level of about 80%. He says that this warning about the confiscation of vehicles is intended to sensitize the citizens and to remind them that they absolutely must pay their fines. Next week, the Democratic Party will be presenting its propositions for the justice reform strategy and analysis. The MP Edward Halimi said in a media statement that he hopes that the documents will be reviewed by the majority so that they can find a common attitude. He made this statement to the press. Next week, we will present the Democratic Parliamentary Group with our attitude regarding 2 documents, the analysis and strategy of the justice reform. We believe that these documents will be reviewed by the majority in order to have a common position. To us, the documents have been drafted unilaterally, Halimi said. We will continue to be part of the judicial reform only if the majority takes our proposals into consideration. It is important to make it clear that the opposition is to have a concrete impact on how we think the justice reform should be made, said Mr. Halimi. Albania's new justice reform will contain a focus on juvenile justice. With this issue in mind, the ad hoc committee responsible for the justice reform organized a roundtable meeting on the issue in cooperation with UNICEF. At the meeting, politicians, experts, and representatives of various organizations addressed the challenges that children in Albania are facing. A director from UNICEF had this to say: "The justice reform must be focused on the protection of the children. We support the drafting of a code of children's rights and protection. The system of implementing the law should also be adapted to the children," he said. The head of the EU delegation in Albania spoke along the same lines. A system is needed for the protection of the children and not for their punishment. The implementation of the law continues to be a problem, and for this reason, the prosecution must work hard in this regard, he said. Today's meeting was intended to pave the way for an important process, the drafting of a legal package to govern the arrest of minors. That concludes our edition for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Please join us again tomorrow at the same time for more translated news in English. Thanks. Have a great night.